They say you can smell danger before you see it. That afternoon in the Celestial Hotel, danger smelled like Braden's overworked cologne mixed with my own fierce sweat and the sickly sweet scent of the lilies arranged on the lobby's center table. Those lilies were probably worth more than I'd make in a month, their white petals perfect and untouched, mocking me as I tried to become invisible. The marble floor was so polished I could see my reflection in it, distorted and wavering like I felt inside. My hands trembled as I adjusted my pastry boxes, the cardboard corners digging into my palms hard enough to hurt. I focused on that pain, anything to distract from the growing panic clawing at my chest. $300 worth of lavender macarons and raspberry tartlets. 2 weeks of grocery money if I dropped them. 2 weeks of explaining to my boss why I'd lost our biggest contract. I'd been delivering custom desserts to the Celestial for 3 months now, always through the service entrance, always invisible. Today, the kitchen staff had redirected me through the main lobby because of some plumbing emergency in the back corridors. Of course, because my life wasn't complicated enough without walking through a space where Braden might see me. The lobby stretched before me like a gauntlet, all soaring ceilings and crystal chandeliers that caught light and threw it around like confetti at a wedding I'd never have. The air was thick with expensive cologne and the kind of wealth that made my second-hand clothes feel like costume jewelry. My sneakers squeaked slightly on that perfect floor, announcing my presence, marking me as someone who didn't belong here. I kept my head down, counting steps. 23 to the elevators. Then I could vanish up to the penthouse kitchen, deliver my desserts, collect my payment, and disappear back into my small, safe world. 23 steps. I could manage that. Aurora. The voice froze me mid-step. My stomach dropped so fast I tasted acid. That familiar tenor with its slight whine at the edges, the way he always said my name like he owned it, like those 3 syllables belonged to him instead of me. Every muscle in my body locked. My pulse hammered in my throat as I clutched the pastry boxes tighter and walked faster, my sneakers squeaking louder now, desperate. 15 steps to the elevators. Just 15 more steps. Aurora, wait. I know that's you. Footsteps behind me, quick and determined. The sound of Ferragamo loafers on marble that his mother had bought him because Braden had never held a job longer than 3 months. Never needed to when Daddy's credit card solved everything. Don't you dare ignore me. His hand clamped on my shoulder, spinning me around with enough force that I nearly dropped my carefully balanced boxes. Braden looked exactly as he had 6 months ago when I'd finally escaped. Sandy hair styled with too much product until it looked wet, pale blue eyes that had once seemed kind but now just looked calculating, like he was already 3 steps ahead in an argument I didn't know we were having. He wore a navy Vineyard Vines blazer, probably bought with his parents' money, the brass buttons catching the chandelier light. The familiar scent of his Acqua di Gio cologne, the kind he wore too much of, made my stomach turn. It used to smell safe. Now, it just smelled like 2 years of my life I'd never get back. I need to make my delivery, I said, proud that my voice only shook slightly. My grandmother's locket pressed cold against my throat, the only thing of value I owned. Please let me go. Let you go. His laugh was sharp, bitter, the sound of something breaking. Like you let me go? Just vanished one day, blocked my number, refused to answer the door. We were supposed to get married, Aurora. We were never supposed to get married. I took a step back, trying to put distance between us, but my back hit someone's designer luggage.
Trapped.
Already trapped, and we'd barely started. I gave your ring back. I explained everything in my letter. Your letter? He spat the words like they tasted foul. 2 years together, and you end it with a letter? Do you have any idea how that made me look? How my mother reacted when I had to tell her? How everyone at the club laughed behind my back? There it was. The thing about Braden that had taken me too long to understand. Everything always circled back to him, to his image, to how things affected his standing with people whose opinions shouldn't matter. Not once had he asked how I felt. Not once had he wondered if I was okay. Just how it made him look. I'd spent 2 years trying to shrink myself small enough to fit into his vision of the perfect girlfriend. baking elaborate desserts for his networking events, smiling through his subtle criticisms about my appearance, my career, my friends. He'd called my dreams of opening a bakery cute in that condescending way that meant he didn't take them seriously. Said working with my hands was charming, like I was playing pioneer woman for his amusement. The day I'd moved into my own tiny apartment above the bakery where I worked, taking only what I'd brought into the relationship, had been the first time I'd breathed freely in months. The air had tasted different.
Cleaner. Mine.
I'm sorry you were hurt, I said, aiming for calm despite my racing heart. But we weren't right for each other. You know that. What I know is that you owe me an explanation. A real one, face to face. His hand shot out, gripping my wrist. Not hard enough to bruise, never hard enough to leave marks. Braden was too smart for that, too aware of how things looked, but firm enough to communicate that I wasn't leaving until he allowed it. The boxes wobbled dangerously. One corner tipped, and I could imagine the macarons inside sliding, shells cracking, 3 days of work destroyed. You're going to make me drop these, and they're worth $300 that I can't afford to replace. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you humiliated me. My vision narrowed, the lobby around us fading as my focus tunneled to his hand on my wrist, to the familiar sensation of being trapped. This was how it had always been. His needs, his feelings, his control disguised as care. He'd say he was worried about me when he called 6 times in an hour. Say he just wanted to know where I was when he showed up unannounced at my work. Say he was protecting me when he suggested I stop seeing friends who didn't understand our relationship. I'd promised myself never again. Never again would I let someone make me feel this small, this powerless, this much like a thing to be moved around rather than a person with my own wants and needs and dreams that mattered. Let go of me. The words came out stronger than I expected, sharp enough that a passing couple glanced our way, their designer shopping bags rustling as they hurried past. No one helped. No one ever helped. Braden's expression shifted, his grip loosening slightly, but not releasing. We're making a scene, Aurora. You hate scenes. He said it like he was being reasonable, like I was the problem. Just come to the bar with me. We'll have a civilized conversation like adults, and then you can make your delivery. I don't want to have a conversation. Too bad. His fingers tightened again, and I felt that old helplessness rising like flood water. You don't get to just walk away from 2 years without giving me closure. The elevator bank was only 10 feet away. If I could just break free, if I could reach those doors before he caught up, I could escape this nightmare. The lobby suddenly felt too warm, too close, the beautiful space transforming into a trap. The chandeliers seemed to press down from above, and the marble under my feet felt slick, treacherous. Braden, please. I hated the pleading note in my voice, hated that he'd reduced me to this again, but the boxes were getting heavier and my arms were shaking. I'm working. I'll lose this contract if I'm late. 1 drink. 30 minutes, then I'll let you go. We both knew that was a lie. 30 minutes would turn into an hour, then 2. He'd want to get dinner, want to remind me of the good times, want to wear down my resistance until I agreed to give him another chance just to make him stop talking. I'd seen this pattern before, lived through it too many times. The exhaustion of saying no over and over until it was easier to just say yes. My eyes darted past him, searching for help, for security, for anyone who might intervene. The hotel staff carefully looked away, trained to ignore minor disputes among guests and visitors. The well-dressed people in the lobby kept their distance, unwilling to involve themselves in someone else's drama. Designer handbags and tailored suits flowed past us like we were stones in a stream, obstacles to navigate around but never acknowledge. I was alone again. The realization galvanized me. I twisted sharply, breaking his grip with a move my friend Jenna had taught me in the self-defense class I'd taken after leaving him. The one where the instructor said the most important thing was to be unexpected, to move when they thought you'd freeze. The pastry boxes listed dangerously, but I managed to steady them as I spun away, my sneakers squeaking on that perfect marble as I lunged toward the elevators. Aurora. Braden's shout echoed through the lobby, bouncing off all that marble and crystal. I heard his footsteps gaining ground behind me. I slammed my hand against the call button. Once, twice, 3 times, as if that would make the elevator arrive faster. Behind me, I could hear his footsteps gaining ground, could feel his presence like a physical weight pressing against my back. My reflection in the polished elevator door showed a young woman with wild eyes and flowers still dusting her dark hair from this morning's baking session. I looked terrified. I looked exactly how I felt. The door slid open with a soft chime that sounded like salvation. I threw myself forward without looking, desperate only to be anywhere he wasn't, to have metal doors between us, to have a moment to breathe and think and plan my next escape. My shoulder collided with something solid, warm, unmovable. The pastry boxes began their inevitable tumble toward the floor. Strong hands caught them, plucking them from my grasp with startling speed, steadying them before a single macaron could be disturbed. I stumbled backward, looking up at the man I'd just crashed into with enough force to bruise someone smaller. He was not smaller. The stranger stood at least 6'3", broad-shouldered in a way that suggested real strength rather than gym vanity. His charcoal brioni suit was impeccably tailored, the kind of craftsmanship that cost more than I made in 6 months. The fabric moved with him like water, like it had been cut specifically for his body and no one else's. Though where Braden's expensive clothes had always looked like costume, like he was playing dress-up in his father's closet, this man wore his like a second skin. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from stone, all sharp angles and hard lines that should have been cold, but instead held an odd magnetism. His jaw was shadowed with stubble that looked intentional rather than careless, and a small scar traced along his jawline, the kind that came from something sharp and deliberate. But it was his eyes that stopped my breath. Dark, almost black in the elevator's lighting, and penetrating with an intensity that seemed to look through me rather than at me. They held a weight I couldn't name, a gravity that made the air between us feel suddenly dense, like standing too close to something powerful and barely contained. "I'm sorry," I gasped, reaching for my boxes. "I didn't see. I wasn't looking, I just—" "Aurora, get back here." Braden's voice shattered the moment. Without thinking, I lunged fully into the elevator, my body moving on pure instinct, pure survival mode. The stranger stepped aside, still holding my pastry boxes with surprising care for someone who looked like he'd never baked anything in his life. His hands were large, long-fingered, but gentle with the delicate cargo. "Please," I whispered, my eyes darting to where Braden was now only feet away, his face red with anger and embarrassment. "Please, I need." The stranger's gaze flicked past me to Braden. Something dark crossed his features, there and gone so quickly I might have imagined it. Something cold and assessing, the way a predator might look at something that had wandered into its territory. Then his hand moved, long fingers pressing the button for the doors to close with deliberate calm. "Wait." Braden shoved his hand forward, trying to catch the closing doors, but the stranger shifted, his body blocking the entrance. Imposing and immovable, a wall of expensive suit and controlled power. The doors slid shut with a soft thunk that felt like the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. Through the narrowing gap, I caught a final glimpse of Braden's furious face, his mouth moving in words I couldn't hear and didn't want to. Then just polished metal, reflecting my face and the stranger's back. The elevator lurched into motion, carrying us upward, and I sagged against the back wall, my legs suddenly too weak to support me. My heart hammered against my ribs hard enough to hurt, and my breath came in short gasps that I couldn't quite control. I'd done it. I'd actually escaped. For the moment, anyway. "Thank you," I managed, looking at the man who still held my pastry boxes with unexpected gentleness. Up close, I could see details I'd missed in my panic. Silver cufflinks at his wrists, understated but expensive. The subtle scent of sandalwood and something darker, richer, more dangerous. Some cologne I didn't recognize, but that probably cost more per ounce than my rent. A Patek Philippe watch on his wrist, the kind of timepiece that represented generational wealth. "I'm sorry for crashing into you, and for dragging you into my mess." He studied me for a long moment, Those intense eyes cataloging details with the same precision I used when decorating cakes, looking for flaws and asymmetries. Then, surprisingly, his mouth curved into something that might have been the ghost of a smile. "The boxes are safe." His voice was low, controlled, with an accent I couldn't quite place. Maybe Italian, maybe further east. The kind of voice that made you lean in to hear better. "That seems to be what matters most to you." I laughed, the sound emerging too high and shaky. "They're not just boxes. They're 2 weeks of grocery money, and the reason I still have this contract." My hands were still trembling, adrenaline working through my system in waves. "I can't afford to lose either." He glanced down at the pastry containers, then back to me. "What floor?" "Penthouse kitchen."
P, I think.
I wiped at my face, realized I was probably smearing flour everywhere. "I usually come in through the service entrance." His expression shifted, something flickering in those dark eyes. Recognition, maybe. Or calculation. "The penthouse."
Yes.
"I'm delivering for a private party. Some tech executive celebrating a deal or something." I realized I was babbling, words tumbling out as the adrenaline slowly drained from my system, leaving me shaky and exhausted. "I make custom desserts for events. Not here usually, but the head chef knows my boss and recommended me, and this is probably way more information than you needed." "Aurora." The way he said my name made something in my chest tighten. Not like Braden said it, with possession and familiarity he hadn't earned.
Different.
Like he was tasting the syllables, testing their weight. Like my name meant something in his mouth. "You heard that," I said unnecessarily, stupidly. "I did." He paused, and I could feel him choosing his next words carefully. "He's your ex-fiancé?" "Was my ex-fiancé. Except we were never actually engaged because I gave the ring back." I was babbling again, but his steady regard seemed to pull words out of me like thread from a spool. "I ended things 6 months ago, and I haven't seen him since, and I really, truly didn't expect him to be here today." The elevator climbed smoothly, floor numbers ticking upward on the digital display.
10.
15.
20.
We were alone in this small metal box, and I was suddenly very aware of how much space he took up. Not threatening, just present. Impossible to ignore. "Does he often chase you through hotel lobbies?" the stranger asked, and there was something in his tone, something cold and sharp beneath the calm surface.
No.
"I've been careful to avoid places he might be." I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the climate-controlled air. Today was just bad luck. "He'll give up eventually," I continued, trying to convince myself as much as him. "He always does. Until he doesn't, and then it starts all over again." The elevator lurched suddenly, a grinding sound echoing through the small space. The lights flickered once, twice, then settled into a dim emergency glow. The floor display froze on 23. We'd stopped moving. "What's happening?" I pushed off the wall, my earlier panic resurging in a different form. The stranger remained perfectly still, his expression unchanging as he calmly set my pastry boxes on the floor and pressed the call button. Nothing happened. He tried several others, his movements methodical and unhurried.
Still nothing.
"We're stuck," I whispered, the reality sinking in. "We're stuck in the elevator." He pulled out his phone, the screen casting blue light across his features, making the angles of his face look even sharper. "No signal." He said it matter-of-factly, without concern. Of course not. Because my day wasn't already complicated enough. I'd escaped Braden only to trap myself in a metal box suspended hundreds of feet above the ground with a complete stranger. A complete stranger who is now studying me with that same unsettling intensity, as if I were a puzzle he'd decided to solve. "How long do you think we'll be stuck here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He slipped his phone back into his pocket with deliberate calm. "Could be minutes. Could be hours. Hotel elevators have emergency protocols, but implementation varies."
Hours.
I could be stuck here for hours with him. The stranger settled back against the elevator wall with the ease of someone accustomed to waiting, to being patient. His dark eyes never left my face. "So," he said, his voice carrying a note of what might have been amusement. Tell me about these desserts that are worth 2 weeks of grocery money. And despite everything, despite the trapped elevator and Braden somewhere below, and the strange intensity of this man I'd just met, I found myself laughing. Really laughing for the first time in what felt like years. The emergency lighting cast shadows across his face, softening nothing. If anything, the dim glow made him look more dangerous, highlighting the sharp angles of his cheekbones, the set of his jaw. I should have been more frightened, trapped here with a stranger whose name I didn't even know. Instead, I felt oddly calm, safer in this suspended metal box than I had in the lobby with Braden. The desserts, I said, grateful for a normal topic to focus on. Something I knew, something I could control. Lavender macarons with honey buttercream, raspberry tartlets with dark chocolate ganache, and miniature opera cakes. All classic French techniques, but I add my own touches. I gestured toward the boxes he'd saved, my hands finally steady. The macarons have real lavender from my grandmother's garden that I dry myself. Makes the flavor more authentic than extract. You can taste the difference, the way it blooms on your tongue instead of hitting you all at once. Your grandmother taught you to bake? He asked it casually, but I sensed real curiosity beneath the words. She taught me everything. The familiar story soothed my nerves, grounded me. She immigrated from Provence when she was 20, worked in bakeries across New York until she saved enough to open her own place. Aubert's in Brooklyn. I smiled at the memory. She'd let me stand on a stool beside her, measuring ingredients, learning ratios by feel rather than numbers. She said baking was about intuition as much as precision. Past tense. I nodded, swallowing against the sudden tightness in my throat. She passed 3 years ago, left me her recipe books, and a very specific instruction to never waste my talent making someone else rich. Yet you work for someone else's bakery. For now. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor, my legs stretched out. After 6 hours on my feet in the bakery's kitchen this morning, even a trapped elevator felt like a rest break. I'm saving to open my own place. It's slow going, but I'm getting there. The stranger lowered himself to sit across from me, movements controlled and precise. Even sitting on an elevator floor, he maintained an air of command that seemed built into his bones. The Brioni's suit didn't wrinkle, didn't crease. Just draped perfectly, like it knew better than to misbehave. How much more do you need? That's a very personal question from someone whose name I don't know. Something flickered in those dark eyes. Amusement, maybe. Luca. He paused deliberately. Just Luca for now. How much more, Aurora? The way he said my name again made my skin prickle with awareness. I told myself it was just the enclosed space, the adrenaline still working through my system, the surreal nature of this entire situation. About $40,000. The number felt impossible, a mountain I'd been climbing with a teaspoon. I have 15 saved. The rest will take me another 2 years if everything goes perfectly. I laughed bitterly, which it never does. And your ex-fiancé? He said the words like they tasted unpleasant. He didn't help with this dream? I picked at the hem of my shirt, the black fabric already dusted with powdered sugar from this morning's work. Braden thought working in a bakery was charming when we met. Quaint, like I was playing at having a career. The old resentment rose in my throat. But when it came to actual marriage, he expected me to give it up. Told me his income would be more than enough, that I could bake as a hobby. Make desserts for his business associates' parties, his mother's charity events. You said no. Eventually, the admission felt heavy. It took me too long to say it, though. I kept thinking maybe I was being unreasonable. Maybe compromise meant giving up what I wanted for what he needed. That's what he told me, anyway. Luca's expression hardened, something cold settling over his features. He was wrong. The certainty in his voice startled me. We'd known each other for all of 15 minutes, most of them in crisis. Yet he spoke with absolute conviction about my worth, my choices. You don't know me, I said softly. How can you be so sure? I know men like him. There was something dark in those words, layers of meaning I couldn't quite reach. Men who see people as possessions, as things to be controlled and displayed. They don't deserve loyalty. The elevator gave a small shudder, making my heart skip. But we didn't start moving again. Just a reminder that we were suspended in space, entirely dependent on machinery and luck. What about you? I asked, needing to shift focus away from myself. What brings you to the Celestial on a Wednesday afternoon? Business meeting. He checked his watch, that Patek Philippe catching even the dim emergency lighting, which I'm now missing. I'm sorry. Don't be. It wasn't important. Something about the way he said it made me think everything was important to Luca, that he didn't deal in trivial matters. The suit alone suggested someone who operated at a level where missing meetings had consequences. What kind of business? I pressed, curious despite myself. The kind that pays well enough that I don't worry about $40,000. It should have sounded arrogant, but his tone was matter-of-fact, simply stating reality. I studied him more carefully, noting details I'd missed in my initial panic. The watch was platinum, the kind of timepiece featured in magazines I couldn't afford. His shoes were Berluti, Italian leather, perfectly maintained. Even his posture spoke of someone accustomed to authority, to being obeyed without question. You're not just staying at this hotel, I said, pieces clicking together. You own it, or part of it. His mouth curved, that ghost of a smile returning. Clever. The staff looked at you differently. In that split second before the doors closed, they recognized you. I tilted my head, examining him with the same precision I used to judge if a cake was perfectly level. And you moved to block Braden like you had every right to decide who enters and exits. Plus, you're too comfortable in this situation. Most people would be anxious about being trapped. You're just patient. Patient, he repeated, something like approval in his voice. That's one word for it. What's another? Accustomed to waiting for the right moment. The words hung between us, loaded with meaning I couldn't quite decipher. The emergency lighting flickered again, and in that brief darkness, I felt the weight of his attention on me like a physical thing. Are you afraid of me, Aurora? The question surprised me with its directness. I considered it honestly, searching my feelings beneath the adrenaline and confusion. No, I said finally. I probably should be. I don't know you. We're trapped alone together, and you have this intensity about you that suggests you're not someone most people say no to. I met his gaze steadily. But I'm not afraid. Maybe I'm just too tired to be frightened of the wrong things anymore. Something shifted in his expression, a crack in that controlled facade. The wrong things. Men like Braden scared me for years, and I didn't even realize it. The words poured out, raw and honest. The way they smile while cutting you down, make you question your own reality, convince you that their control is actually care. I wrapped my arms around my knees, suddenly feeling very young and very old at the same time. You might be dangerous, Luca, but at least you're honest about it. You think I'm dangerous. I know you are. I didn't know how I knew, but the certainty sat heavy in my chest. Everything about you says you're someone who makes problems disappear. The question is what kind of problems, and how you make them disappear. The elevator shuddered again, more violently this time. My hand shot out instinctively, bracing against the wall. Luca moved with startling speed, his body shifting to shield mine, one hand pressed flat against the metal beside my head. The protective instinct was automatic, ingrained, like he'd spent a lifetime putting himself between threats and things he deemed worth protecting. The shaking subsided. We stayed frozen in that position, his body close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him, smell the sandalwood, and something uniquely him underneath. My heart pounded, but not from fear. I should move, he said quietly, but didn't. Probably, I agreed, but didn't pull away. His eyes searched mine, that dark intensity focused entirely on me. Your ex-fiancé. The one waiting downstairs. If he's still there when we get out, what will you do? Try to avoid him. Go back through the service entrance like I should have in the first place. And if he follows you? If he finds where you work, where you live? The scenarios I'd spent 6 months trying not to imagine spilled out before me. I'll handle it. I always have. By running. The words stung because they were true. By surviving. There's a difference. Luca pulled back slightly, giving me space, but not much. What if you didn't have to run? What if the problems simply went away? Something in his tone made my pulse quicken. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that men like your Braden respond to one thing. Power. His voice was calm, almost gentle. The realization that they've chosen the wrong target. That pursuing you carries consequences they're not willing to face. You can't just threaten him. That's illegal, and he has family money. Lawyers. I'm not suggesting threats. Luca's voice remained steady. I'm suggesting presence. The knowledge that you're under someone's protection. Someone who makes Braden and his lawyers seem like children playing at being adults. I should have been horrified. Should have recognized this for what it was, another man trying to control my situation, decide my fate. But looking into Luca's eyes, I didn't see Braden's need to own. I saw something colder, more practical. A businessman identifying a problem and proposing a solution. Why would you do that? I asked. You don't know me. My problems aren't your responsibility. Perhaps I'm interested in making them my responsibility. The elevator lights flickered back to full brightness, harsh and sudden. A crackling sound came from the emergency speaker, followed by a tinny voice. This is hotel security. We're aware of the elevator malfunction and are working to restore service. Please remain calm. We'll have you moving shortly. Luca didn't move. Didn't reach for the speaker to respond. He simply continued to watch me, waiting for my answer to a question I wasn't sure he'd actually asked. I said instead, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. For helping me get away from Braden. For catching my boxes. For not being weird about being stuck in here with me. Is that a dismissal? It's a statement of fact. He smiled then, really smiled, and it transformed his face completely. The hard lines softened, something almost boyish emerging beneath the dangerous exterior. You have a sharp tongue when you're not frightened. I'm always frightened, I admitted. I've just learned to talk anyway. The elevator jerked, then smoothly resumed its upward climb. Floor 24.
25.
The penthouse level approaching fast, and with it, the end of this strange, suspended moment. When we get out, Luca said, his voice dropping lower, more intimate. You'll make your delivery. You'll collect your payment. And then you'll have a decision to make. What decision? Whether to walk back out through that lobby alone, hoping Braden has given up and gone home. He paused, his eyes holding mine. Or whether to accept my offer of protection. The door slid open with a soft chime, revealing the penthouse hallway. Luca retrieved my pastry boxes with the same careful handling he'd shown before, presenting them to me like an offering. A man in an expensive suit waited in the hallway. Thick-necked and watchful, security clearly, though not hotel security. He had that same quality Luca did, that sense of controlled violence, barely contained. He nodded to Luca with the deference of someone who knew exactly who held power here. Marco, Luca said. Ms. Aurora has a delivery to make. Ensure she's escorted safely to the kitchen and back. Of course, sir. I took my boxes, my mind spinning. I never told you my last name. You didn't have to. Luca stepped out of the elevator, straightening his cuffs with casual precision. The Celestial's penthouse kitchen doesn't accept deliveries without running background checks on the vendors. Your information was already on file. The realization hit me like cold water. He'd known who I was before the elevator doors even opened in the lobby. Had seen my name, my business, probably my address, and work history. Everything. You knew, I whispered. You already knew everything about me. Not everything. His eyes held mine, dark and intense. I didn't know you'd taste like determination underneath the fear. I didn't know you'd fight back against a man twice your size with nothing but pastry boxes as weapons. I didn't know your grandmother taught you that baking was intuition. He moved closer, lowering his voice, so only I could hear. And I didn't know that I'd decide, before we even reached the penthouse, that you were going to be mine. The possessive declaration should have terrified me, should have sent me running in the opposite direction. But something in me, some part one didn't quite recognize, responded to the certainty in his voice. I'm not looking for another relationship, I managed. Good. Neither am I. He pulled a card from his inner jacket pocket, pressing it into my palm. The cardstock was heavy, expensive, embossed with gold lettering. I'm offering you protection, Aurora. A shield against men like Braden. No strings, no expectations beyond this. You're under my watch now. No one touches what's mine. I'm not yours. Not yet, he agreed, his mouth curving slightly. But you will be. And when you're ready to stop running, you'll call that number. Marco cleared his throat politely. Sir, your 2 o'clock is waiting. Lucas stepped back, that controlled mask sliding into place like a door closing. Make your delivery. Marco will ensure you get out safely. He paused, waiting until I met his eyes. And Aurora? Choose the service exit today. But eventually, you'll walk through the front lobby with your head high, because no one who belongs to me hides in the shadows. He turned and walked away, his footsteps silent on the plush carpet. I stood frozen, his card burning in my palm like a brand, watching him disappear around a corner with Marco following at a respectful distance. Miss Aurora. Another security guard appeared at my elbow, young and professional. The kitchen is this way. I followed on autopilot, my mind replaying every word, every look, every moment in that elevator. The pastry boxes felt lighter now. Or maybe I just felt stronger, changed somehow by 2 hours with a dangerous man who decided I was worth protecting. The kitchen staff took my desserts with professional efficiency, barely glancing at me as they inspected each piece for damage. None, thankfully. I collected my payment, $300 in cash that the head chef counted out with careful precision, and Marco appeared again to escort me back. Mr. Rossi wanted me to ensure you got to your vehicle safely, he said as we descended in the service elevator. His accent was faint but present, Italian, like the hint I'd caught in Luca's voice. I don't have a car, I said. I take the subway. Something flickered in his expression. Disapproval, maybe. Or concern. Mr. Rossi won't like that. The subway isn't safe for you anymore.
Why?
Because I turned down a business meeting in a hotel lobby. I tried to keep my voice light, but anxiety crept in at the edges. Braden's annoying, not dangerous. Marco's look suggested I was being dangerously naive. Men become dangerous when their pride is wounded, Miss Aurora. Your ex made a scene in a very public place. That kind of humiliation breeds resentment. The service elevator opened to a bland hallway, all the glamour of the main hotel stripped away to reveal the utilitarian bones beneath. We walked past laundry carts and supply closets, the smell of industrial cleaner replacing the lobby's expensive cologne and fresh lilies. The subway entrance is 2 blocks west, Marco said as we reached a door marked staff exit. So, he discussed me with you. He discusses everything with me. I've worked for him for 12 years. Marco guided me around a puddle left from the morning's rain. In that time, I've never seen him take personal interest in someone so quickly. You should consider that significant. Or concerning. Both can be true. We reached the subway entrance, crowds flowing up and down the stairs in a constant stream. Marco stopped, his eyes scanning the people around us with professional vigilance. You have his card, he said. When you decide to use it, and you will call any time, day or night, someone will answer. What makes you so sure I'll call? Because right now, you're thinking about whether your ex-fiancé knows your subway route, whether he might be waiting at your stop, whether going home means walking into another confrontation. Marco's voice gentled slightly. Mr. Rossi can make those worries disappear. All you have to do is ask. He was right, and I hated that he was right. The thought of descending into the subway, of the walk from the station to my apartment, of being alone and vulnerable, made my stomach clench with anxiety I'd been suppressing. Thank you for the escort, I said, instead of addressing his point. Marco nodded once, then turned and walked back toward the hotel, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the decision pressing against my chest like a weight. I descended into the subway, paid my fare, and positioned myself in the middle of the crowded platform. Safer there, surrounded by people, visible. The rational brain still functioning despite everything else. My phone buzzed. A text from my roommate and best friend, Jenna. "You're late. Everything okay? Did the delivery go well?" I typed back, "Long story. Home soon." The train arrived with its usual screech of brakes and blast of stale air. I pushed into a middle car, found a spot near the doors where I could see everyone around me, and scanned faces automatically, looking for sandy hair and pale blue eyes. Braden wasn't there, but the anxiety remained, coiled tight in my chest. Luca's card felt heavy in my pocket. I pulled it out, studying it under the fluorescent lights. Simple, elegant. Just a name, Luca Rossi, a phone number, and an address in the East 70s, all in gold embossing on black cardstock. No company name, no title. Like the details were irrelevant to anyone who mattered. I had a last name now, at least. The train rocked and swayed, carrying me toward home, toward my tiny apartment and my normal life. The life I'd built after leaving Braden, after claiming my independence. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Except it didn't feel safe anymore. Not with Braden knowing where I worked, where I made deliveries. Not with 6 months of running catching up to me in a hotel lobby. My finger hovered over my phone's search bar. Did I want to know? Did I want to confirm what my instincts already whispered? That Luca was exactly the kind of dangerous his entire demeanor suggested? Knowledge was power, though. And I was so tired of being powerless. I typed his name into the search engine. The results filled my screen. Article after article from business journals and society pages. Luca Rossi, real estate magnate. Luca Rossi at charity galas with beautiful women on his arm, though never the same woman twice. Luca Rossi opening a new hotel, a new restaurant, a new luxury apartment complex. But beneath the legitimate business coverage, there were other articles. Opinion pieces and true crime blogs that asked questions without answers. Speculation about his family's connections, about the speed of his empire's growth, about rivals who'd suddenly sold their properties at significant losses or disappeared from the New York business scene entirely. Nothing concrete, nothing actionable. Just a consistent thread of suspicion woven through his success story. The Rossi family, one article explained, had immigrated from Sicily 3 generations ago. They'd built their fortune through hard work and strategic investments. Or, so the official story went. But older New Yorkers remembered when the Rossi name meant something different, something whispered about in careful tones. I clicked through to images. Luca in a tuxedo at some gala, his hand at a woman's back, his expression commanding even in formal celebration. Luca cutting a ribbon at a hotel opening, his smile polished, but not quite reaching his eyes. Luca in a business suit outside a courthouse, his lawyer beside him, the caption reading, "Rossi cleared of all charges in business partner's disappearance." My hands trembled slightly as I processed the information. This was who had offered me protection. This was who had called me his in that elevator. Who had looked at me like I was a puzzle worth solving and a prize worth claiming. I should have been running in the opposite direction. Instead, I saved his number in my phone. The train lurched to my stop. I exited with the crowd, climbed the stairs back to street level, and walked the 4 blocks to my apartment building with my keys threaded through my fingers like makeshift brass knuckles. Another trick from that self-defense class. My apartment was a 4th-floor walk-up in a building that had probably been elegant in the 1920s, but now just looked tired. The hallway smelled of cooking garlic and old carpet. I could hear my neighbor's television through the thin walls, some game show with canned laughter. This was my life. Small, humble, safe in its anonymity. Everything I'd built after leaving Braden, after claiming my independence. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I unlocked my door and stepped inside. Finally. Jenna looked up from her laptop, relief crossing her features. I was about to send a search party. How did the delivery go? Jenna had been my anchor through the breakup with Braden, the friend who'd helped me find this apartment and spotted me rent money when my savings ran short. She worked as a graphic designer from home, her half of our living room currently covered in color swatches and font samples. It went fine, I said automatically. Then, because I'd never been good at lying to her. Actually, it was completely insane. I told her everything. The confrontation with Braden in the lobby, the escape into the elevator, Luca appearing like some dark angel to save my pastries and block my ex from following. The hours trapped together, his unsettling intensity, his casual declaration of ownership, Marco's escort, and the card burning a hole in my pocket. Jenna listened without interrupting, her expression cycling through concern, disbelief, and something close to horror. "Let me get this straight," she said when I finished. "A man you've never met, who happens to own the hotel you were delivering to, decided in the span of 2 hours that you belong to him now. And you're considering his offer of protection." Hearing it summarized like that made it sound even more insane than it felt. "He saved me from Braden," I said weakly. "By being possibly worse than Braden." Jenna stood, pacing our small living room. "Aurora, did you read those articles? The disappeared business partner? The cleared charges that everyone still questions? This man is dangerous." "I know." "Then why do you have that look on your face?" "What look?" "Like you're actually thinking about calling him." She grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to meet her eyes. "Listen to me. I love you, and I will support you through anything. But this is how women end up on true crime podcasts." I pulled away, moving to the window that overlooked our street. From here, I could see the bodega on the corner where I bought milk, the bus stop where I waited on rainy mornings, the coffee shop where I sometimes treated myself to a latte. My world. Small and safe and entirely mine. Except it didn't feel safe anymore. Not with Braden knowing where I worked, where I made deliveries. Not with 6 months of running catching up to me in a hotel lobby. What if she's right? I asked quietly, not turning from the window. What if I can't keep running forever? Then you get a restraining order. You go to the police. You do things legally through the system. The system that requires proof Braden's threatening me when he's too smart to leave evidence. I turned to face her. The system where his family's lawyers will make me look like a bitter ex who can't let go. I tried that route, Jenna. I documented everything, saved every text, every voicemail. The police said they couldn't do anything unless he physically hurt me. So you ran instead. So I survived instead. My phone buzzed on the counter between us. Unknown number. "Don't answer it," Jenna warned. I answered it. "Hello, Aurora." Luca's voice, warm and certain, like he'd known I would pick up. "I hope Marco saw you home safely." He walked me to the subway. "I made it back fine."
Good.
"I wanted to ensure you arrived without incident." Behind me, Jenna made frantic gestures suggesting I hang up immediately. I turned away, lowering my voice. "How did you get my number?" "The background check for your delivery access included contact information." He said it casually, like surveillance of me was perfectly reasonable. "I'm calling to extend an invitation." "An invitation to what?"
Dinner.
"Tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock. I'll send a car." The presumption in his voice made my temper flare. "You're asking me out? After everything you said in that elevator about ownership and protection?" "I'm asking you to dinner," he corrected. "So, we can discuss the terms of our arrangement in detail." "What arrangement? I never agreed to anything." "Not yet." That phrase again, loaded with certainty about a future he decided on. "But you will. Because you're smart enough to recognize when you need help, and I'm offering it. The only question is whether you're brave enough to accept." "This isn't about bravery, isn't it?" His voice dropped lower, more intimate. "You spent 2 years letting someone make you small, Aurora. Then you found the courage to leave, to build something of your own. But now he's back, threatening that independence you fought for. I'm offering you a way to stop running. By becoming indebted to you instead. By becoming protected by me. There's a difference." I closed my eyes, torn between logic screaming that this was wrong and exhaustion whispering that maybe, just maybe, I could stop fighting alone. One dinner, I heard myself say, "Just to talk about what you're proposing. No commitments beyond that." "One dinner," he agreed. "I'll have Marco collect you at 6:30 tomorrow. I can take the subway." "You could," he acknowledged, "but you won't. Because part of what I'm offering is the end of choosing between pride and safety. You don't have to pretend anymore that you're not exhausted from looking over your shoulder." The understanding in his voice cracked something in my chest. He saw through the brave face I'd been maintaining, straight to the fear underneath. 6:30, I repeated softly. "Wear something comfortable. This isn't about impressing me. You already have." He ended the call before I could respond. I turned to find Jenna watching me, with concern etched across her face. "You said yes," she stated flatly. "To dinner. Just dinner. With a man who makes people disappear. With a man who might be able to make Braden disappear." I corrected. "Just from my life. Not permanently. Just gone." Jenna pulled me into a hug, fierce and worried. "Then I'm coming with you tomorrow. Or following in a cab.
Something.
I'm not letting you walk into this alone. He'll know if you follow." "I don't care." She pulled back, gripping my shoulders. "Promise me you'll text me every hour. And if anything feels wrong, anything at all, you'll leave immediately." "I promise." But as I said it, I wondered what wrong would feel like in the company of a man who'd made me feel safer in 2 hours than I had in 6 months of freedom. What wrong would feel like when everything about Luca Rossi was a contradiction. Danger wrapped in protection, control disguised as care. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Luca's card on my nightstand catching street light through my window. Tomorrow I would have dinner with a man I shouldn't trust, discuss an arrangement I shouldn't consider, and possibly seal my fate in ways I couldn't predict. But at least I would stop running. At least for one night, I could pretend I was strong enough to face danger head-on instead of always fleeing from it. Outside, the city hummed with its usual nighttime symphony. And somewhere in the East 70s, in a townhouse I'd never seen, Luca Rossi was probably awake too, planning our conversation, deciding my future with the same certainty he'd shown in that elevator. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it felt almost like relief. Marco arrived exactly at 6:30, as promised. I'd spent the entire day oscillating between canceling and what-if scenarios that left me dizzy with anxiety. Jenna had offered repeatedly to come with me, to at least follow at a distance, but I'd refused. Something told me Luca would see through any attempt at backup, and the consequences of showing I didn't trust him might be worse than going alone. I'd chosen a simple navy dress from my limited wardrobe, the kind I wore to important client meetings. Professional but not trying too hard. My grandmother's gold locket hung at my throat, a talisman of courage I desperately needed. The weight of it against my skin reminded me that I came from strong women, women who'd survived worse than dinner with a dangerous man. "You look beautiful," Jenna said as I checked my reflection one final time, and terrified. Both accurate. I smoothed down the dress, my hands shaking slightly. "Text me every hour." "I mean it, Aurora." "I will." I hugged her quickly, then headed downstairs before I could change my mind. Marco waited beside a black Mercedes S-Class that was elegant without being ostentatious. The kind of car that said money without shouting it. He opened the back door for me with a slight bow. "Ms. Aurora, Mr. Rossi is looking forward to your evening. Is he at the restaurant already?" I slid into the back seat, the leather cool against my skin, softer than anything I'd ever touched. "No, ma'am." Marco closed the door and moved to the driver's seat. As we pulled away from my building, he met my eyes in the rearview mirror. "Dinner will be at his residence." My stomach dropped. "I thought we were going to a restaurant." "Mr. Rossi prefers privacy for important conversations." Marco's tone suggested this wasn't negotiable. His home is fully staffed. "You'll be perfectly safe." Safe. That word again, losing meaning with each repetition. I pulled out my phone, fingers shaking as I typed to Jenna. Change of plans. Dinner at his house. We'll update soon. Her response came immediately. Absolutely not, Aurora. This is how people disappear. I'll be fine. Promise. If I don't hear from you by 9, I'm calling the police. I pocketed my phone, watching the city slide past the tinted windows. We drove north, leaving my familiar neighborhood behind for streets lined with increasingly expensive buildings. The architecture shifted from tired brick to polished limestone, from bodegas to boutiques with names I couldn't pronounce. Trees appeared on the sidewalks, actual trees with leaves that hadn't been choked by exhaust fumes. This was a different New York entirely. The New York where people like Luca lived, where money insulated you from the city's harsh edges, where the streets were cleaner and the air somehow smelled better. 20 minutes later, we pulled up to a townhouse in the East 70s that made my breath catch. 5 stories of limestone and wrought iron, elegant windows glowing warmly against the evening sky. The kind of address that represented generational wealth, old money that had been carefully tended and multiplied over decades. A discreet security camera swept the entrance as Marco opened my door. Mr. Rossi is expecting you on the 3rd floor. I'll escort you up. The interior was stunning in its understated luxury. Marble floors that looked like they'd been quarried from some Italian mountainside, original crown molding that had survived a century of New York winters, art on the walls that I suspected wasn't reproduction. A Modigliani, maybe. Or something equally impossible. But what struck me most was how lived in it felt. Books stacked on a side table, their spines creased from actual reading. A cashmere sweater draped over a chair, navy blue, and probably worth more than my monthly rent. Fresh flowers in a crystal vase, white peonies that filled the air with their subtle sweetness. This wasn't a showpiece. This was a home. We climbed a curved staircase, my heels clicking softly on hardwood. At the 3rd floor, Marco gestured toward an open doorway where warm light spilled into the hallway. He's waiting in the dining room. I'll be downstairs if you need anything, Miss Aurora. I stepped through the doorway and stopped. The room was intimate despite its size, dominated by a table set for 2. Candles flickered in simple silver holders, casting warm light that softened the formal elegance. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a private garden, impossible in Manhattan, where outdoor space was measured in square inches. Trees swayed gently in the evening breeze, their leaves catching the last of the sunset. And there, standing by the window with his back to me, was Luca. He'd changed from his earlier suit into dark slacks and a white turnbull and asser shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with lean muscle. More relaxed than this afternoon, but still radiating that controlled power that seemed fundamental to who he was. The shirt was perfectly tailored, hugging his shoulders in a way that suggested custom-made rather than off the rack. He turned as I entered, his dark eyes finding mine immediately, and something in his expression shifted.
Softened.
Like he'd been uncertain I would actually come.
Aurora.
Thank you for coming. Did I really have a choice? The words came out sharper than I intended, defensive. There's always a choice. He moved toward me, graceful and deliberate, each step measured. You could have refused my invitation, blocked my number, disappeared into the city's anonymity. He stopped a few feet away, close enough that I could smell his sandalwood cologne, see the shadow of stubble along his jaw. But you're here, which tells me something important. What does it tell you? That you're tired of being afraid. His voice was gentle, understanding in a way that made my chest tight. That you recognize power when you see it, and you're smart enough to know when to accept help. He gestured to the table. Please sit. Dinner will be served shortly. I moved to the chair he indicated, hyper-aware of him behind me as he helped settle me in place. His hands were careful, respectful, never lingering longer than necessary. But the brief contact sent awareness skittering across my skin, made me conscious of how much space he took up, how his presence seemed to fill the room. He took the seat across from me, close enough for conversation but not crowding. The distance felt calculated, designed to keep me comfortable while maintaining intimacy. You Googled me, he said. Not a question. a statement of fact delivered with something like amusement. Of course I did. I met his eyes, refusing to apologize for basic self-preservation. And what did you find? That you're either a very successful businessman with unfortunate associations, or a criminal with an excellent public relations team. His laugh was genuine, surprised, the sound warming something in my chest. I like your directness. Most people dance around what they really think. I don't see the point in pretending. I straightened my spine, channeling my grandmother's courage. If we're having this conversation, it should be honest. Agreed. He leaned back slightly, studying me with those intense dark eyes. So, let's be honest. What do you want to know? Everything. Nothing. Questions crowded my throat, each one more dangerous than the last. The disappeared business partner, I said, choosing the most direct path. Did you kill him?
No.
Did you have him killed?
No.
He didn't flinch from a question, didn't show any discomfort. Roberto Santini was my partner and my friend. When he disappeared, I spent considerable resources searching for him. His body was found 2 months later in the Hudson. The police investigation concluded he'd been killed by rivals in a business deal gone wrong. I was cleared of all involvement. But people still think you did it. People will always think the worst of those with power. It's easier to assume I'm a monster than to accept that sometimes tragedy strikes without conspiracy. His jaw tightened slightly, the only sign that the topic affected him. Roberto had a wife, 2 daughters. I make sure they're taken care of. His youngest just started at Columbia. I'm paying her tuition. The detail felt significant, personal. Not something he'd share to impress me, but something that mattered to him. A woman in a black uniform entered with the first course, delicate lobster bisque in white porcelain bowls. She served us silently and withdrew, her footsteps barely audible on the hardwood. You said you have questions, Luca prompted, picking up a spoon. Ask them. Tonight is about building trust. I tasted the soup, buying time to organize my thoughts. It was perfect, rich and complex, with that depth of flavor that came from hours of careful preparation. Everything in Luca's world seemed to be perfect on the surface. The question was what lay underneath. What exactly are you offering me? I asked finally, setting down my spoon. You mentioned protection, but from what? Braden's annoying, not dangerous. Men like Braden are more dangerous than you realize. Luca's tone was matter-of-fact, like he was explaining basic mathematics. Not physically perhaps, but in other ways. He has family money, connections, the kind of social capital that can make your life difficult. He leaned forward slightly, his eyes never leaving mine. He can call your clients, suggest you're unstable. He can make complaints to the health department about the bakery where you work, claim he saw violations that don't exist. He can file frivolous lawsuits that cost you money you don't have to defend. Each scenario he described made my stomach clench because they all felt plausible. Braden had always fought dirty when he didn't get his way, always found ways to punish people who disappointed him while keeping his own hands clean. So you're offering to what? Threaten him back. I'm offering to make him understand that pursuing you carries consequences he won't enjoy. Luca's voice was calm, almost gentle. No threats necessary. Just facts, delivered by people he can't dismiss. And what do you get in return? The question hung between us, heavy with implication. This was the heart of it, the price tag on his protection. Your company. He said it simply, like it was obvious. For 6 months, you'll be seen with me at business dinners, social functions, anywhere I need a partner. You'll play the role of my girlfriend convincingly. I nearly choked on my soup. You want me to be your fake girlfriend? I want you to be my very real girlfriend in all the ways that matter publicly. He set down his spoon, giving me his full attention. What happens privately is separate. Why? I searched his face for the trap, for the hidden angle. You could have any woman you want. Women who know how to navigate your world, who understand these events. Why me? Because most women who would date me want something. Money, status, access to my world. His gaze held mine steadily, unflinching. You want none of those things. You want independence, safety, the freedom to build your bakery dreams without interference. He paused, and something vulnerable flickered in his expression. And because you intrigue me, Aurora. You stood up to me in that elevator, called me dangerous to my face, and didn't flinch. Do you know how rare that is? Maybe I'm just stupid. You're many things. Stupid isn't one of them. The main course arrived, perfectly seared duck breast with a cherry reduction that smelled divine. The woman who served us, Maria, refilled our wine glasses and disappeared again like a ghost. Her service, so seamless, I barely noticed her presence. 6 months, I repeated, processing the timeline. What happens after? After 6 months, we reassess. Luca cut his duck with precise movements, the knife sliding through the meat effortlessly. By then, Braden will have moved on to easier targets. You'll have built a buffer of savings from not paying rent, since you'll be living here. My wine glass stopped halfway to my lips. Living here? That wasn't part of the deal. It's necessary for the arrangement to be convincing. He said it like it was obvious, reasonable. A girlfriend who lives separately raises questions. People talk, speculate. The relationship needs to appear authentic. He gestured around us. I have 5 floors, Aurora. You'll have your own suite, complete privacy. We don't have to see each other outside of public events if you don't want to. But I have a roommate, a lease, a life. Your roommate can find a new living situation. I'll cover any penalties for breaking your lease. He made it sound so simple, so reasonable. As for your life, you'll simply be living it from a different address. You'll continue working at the bakery, testing recipes, building your business plan. Nothing changes except where you sleep at night. Everything changes, I thought. My entire world would tilt on its axis. And if I refuse? Then you refuse. No threat in his voice, just acceptance. I'll drive you home myself. You never hear from me again, and you handle Braden however you see fit. He set down his knife and fork, leaning back to study me. But you came here tonight, Aurora. You answered my call, got in my car, walked through my door. You're considering this. Why? Because I was exhausted. Because 6 months of running had worn me down to nothing, eroded my courage until I was jumping at shadows. Because the thought of someone powerful putting themselves between me and Braden felt like oxygen after drowning. Because despite every logical reason to refuse, something in me responded to Luca's certainty, his absolute conviction that he could keep me safe. I need to think about it, I said finally, my voice smaller than I wanted. Of course. Take the time you need. He picked up his wine glass, swirling the deep red liquid. But while you're thinking, consider this. Tomorrow, Braden will wake up and decide whether to pursue you further. He'll weigh his options, maybe call his lawyer or his well-connected father. He'll strategize how to make your life difficult until you agree to talk to him, to give him the closure he thinks he deserves. Each word landed like a stone in my chest because I knew he was right. Braden wouldn't just give up. He never did. Or, Luca continued, his voice dropping lower. Tomorrow Braden wakes up to a visit from associates of mine. Very polite, very professional. They explain that his interest in Aurora Reyes has become noticed by people he doesn't want noticing him. They suggest, for his own well-being, that he move on. They leave, and he never bothers you again. Just like that. Just like that. I wanted to believe it could be that simple, that someone could snap their fingers and make my problems disappear. What do these associates say to him exactly? What threats do they make? No threats. Just information. Luca's expression was unreadable. The kind of information that makes a smart man realize he's out of his depth. His father's business has some irregularities in their tax filings. Nothing illegal, but enough to warrant an audit that would be expensive and time-consuming. His brother has a DUI from college that was expunged, but records can resurface. His mother's favorite charity has some questionable expenditures. He took a sip of wine. They present these facts, explain that continued harassment of you would be unfortunate for everyone involved and leave. Braden isn't brave, Aurora. He's a bully who preys on people without protection. The moment he understands you have protection, he'll fold. And if he doesn't, then additional measures are taken. The certainty in his voice should have been alarming. But it won't come to that. We finished dinner mostly in silence. both of us aware that a decision hung in the air between us, unspoken but pressing. Dessert was a delicate panna cotta with berry compote that I barely tasted, my mind too busy cataloging consequences. Living in Luca's house meant giving up my independence, the very thing I'd fought so hard to claim. It meant becoming entangled with a man whose power I didn't fully understand, whose world operated by rules I didn't know. It meant trusting someone I'd met less than 24 hours ago with my safety, my future, my life. But it also meant sleeping without checking the locks 3 times. It meant not looking over my shoulder every time I left my apartment. It meant 6 months of breathing freely, of focusing on my dreams instead of just surviving. After coffee, Luca stood, extending his hand. "Let me show you something." I followed him down a hallway lined with photographs, black and white images of places I didn't recognize. Sicily, maybe. Or southern Italy. Old stone buildings and narrow streets, the kind of beauty that came from centuries of history. He stopped at a door and opened it to reveal a bedroom suite that took my breath away. Soft grays and creams, colors that felt like clouds and morning light. A bed that looked cloud-soft, dressed in linens that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Windows overlooking the garden, where solar lights now illuminated the trees, making them glow like something from a fairy tale. An attached bathroom in white marble and brushed gold, the fixtures gleaming. A walk-in closet larger than my current bedroom. "This would be yours," he said, his voice quiet. "Complete privacy. I'm on the 5th floor. You'd be here on the 3rd. Marco and other staff are on the 2nd floor. You'd have your own key, your own space, autonomy to come and go as you please. As long as I play the devoted girlfriend when needed. As long as you uphold your end of our arrangement." Yes. I moved into the room, running my fingers along the dresser, testing the mattress edge. Everything was perfect, expensive, designed for comfort. A gilded cage, but a cage nonetheless. How many women have you made this offer to? I turned to face him, needing to see his reaction.
None.
You're the first. Why me? Really? I crossed my arms, protecting myself from whatever answer he'd give. Don't give me the intrigue answer. Tell me the truth. He moved closer, stopping just inside my personal space. Not threatening, but present, impossible to ignore. His cologne wrapped around me, sandalwood, and something uniquely him. Because when you crashed into that elevator, terrified and determined in equal measure, you didn't see me as useful. You saw me as human first. His hand rose, fingers barely grazing my cheek, the touch so light I might have imagined it. You challenged me, made me laugh, treated me like I was just a man instead of a name with power attached. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone, and I forgot how to breathe. And because I've spent 15 years building an empire, eliminating threats, controlling everything in my sphere. But I can't control how I feel when you look at me with those defiant eyes. Can't control wanting to be the one who makes you feel safe. The admission hung between us, raw and honest. "This is insane," I whispered. "Probably. I barely know you. You'll have 6 months to change that." His hand dropped away, giving me space to think. "And if you hate living here, if the arrangement doesn't work, then we end it. No penalties, no consequences. You walk away with savings, connections, and an ex-fiancé who's learned to leave you alone." It was too easy, too simple. Life didn't hand out solutions wrapped in attractive packages. But standing in that beautiful room with Luca watching me like I was something precious, I wanted to believe it could be that uncomplicated. "I need to talk to Jenna first," I said. "My roommate. She deserves to know what I'm considering." "Of course." He nodded, respect in his eyes. "Marco will drive you home. Take tonight to think. Call me tomorrow with your decision." We went back downstairs, the evening wrapping around us like a question mark. At the door, Luca caught my hand, his thumb brushing across my knuckles in a gesture that felt almost tender. "Aurora, whatever you decide, I want you to know something." His dark eyes held mine, serious and sincere. "You're stronger than you realize. If you choose to face Braden alone, you'll survive. You don't need me." "Then why make the offer?" Because needing and wanting are different things. His voice dropped lower, intimate. You don't need me, but maybe you want someone in your corner. Someone who sees your strength and wants to amplify it, not diminish it. He released my hand, stepping back. Think about it. Marco drove me home in silence, and when I finally climbed the stairs to my apartment, I found Jenna pacing frantically, her phone clutched in her hand. Thank God. She pulled me inside, her relief palpable. I was 5 minutes from calling the police. Are you okay? Did he hurt you? What happened? I told her everything. The dinner, the offer, the bedroom that would be mine, the promise of protection and freedom in exchange for playing a role. When I finished, Jenna sat heavily on our second-hand couch. This is insane, Aurora. You know that, right? This is completely insane. I know, but you're going to say yes, aren't you? I looked at our small apartment, at the life I'd built through sheer determination. Safe, humble, mine. Everything I'd fought for after leaving Braden. But that safety was an illusion now. Braden knew where I worked, could find me whenever he wanted. And I was so tired of running, of choosing between pride and peace. I think I am, I admitted. I think I'm going to say yes. Jenna pulled me into a hug, fierce and worried. Then I'm checking in on you constantly. And if anything feels wrong, if he does anything that scares you, you call me immediately. Promise me. I promise. That night, I lay in my narrow bed, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow, I would call Luca and accept his offer. Tomorrow, I would agree to move into his house, to play his girlfriend, to let him handle my problems with Braden. Tomorrow, my life would change completely. The thought terrified and exhilarated me in equal measure. Outside, the city hummed its usual symphony, car horns and distant sirens, and the sound of someone's music bleeding through the walls. My world, small and familiar. I pulled out my phone, my thumb hovering over Luca's contact. It was after midnight now, probably too late to text. But his words echoed in my mind. Call anytime, day or night. I typed a simple message. Yes. Stared at it for a long moment, my finger hovering over send. This was it. The moment where everything changed. The moment I stopped running and started trusting someone else to fight for me. I pressed send before I could change my mind. His response came within seconds, as if he'd been waiting, phone in hand. I'll have Marco collect you Saturday morning. Bring what matters. Everything else can be replaced. I set down my phone and closed my eyes, my heart racing. The die was cast. The decision made. In 3 days, I would move into Luca Rossi's home and become his not-quite-real girlfriend and hope that this particular cage came with a key I could use when I finally needed to fly.
My phone buzzed again.
Another message from Luca. You won't regret this, Aurora. I promise you that. But lying there in the dark, in my small safe room that would soon belong to someone else, I wondered if promises from dangerous men meant anything at all. Or if I just traded one prison for another, one with better furniture, and a man who made my pulse race when he said my name. Outside, a siren wailed past, and I thought about how 3 days from now, I wouldn't hear that sound anymore. I'd be in the East 70s, where the streets were quiet and clean, where money bought distance from the city's chaos. I'd be in Luca Rossi's world. God help me, I thought. And then, more honestly, God help him, because he has no idea what he's getting. I wasn't the fragile thing Braden had tried to make me. I was my grandmother's granddaughter, and she hadn't fled across an ocean to raise someone who stayed small. If Luca Rossi wanted me in his life, he'd get all of me. The strength and the stubbornness, the dreams and the determination. And if this arrangement was going to work, he'd have to learn that protection was a two-way street. I fell asleep with that thought, a small smile on my lips, and for the first time in 6 months, I didn't check the locks before closing my eyes. Moving day arrived with unseasonable warmth, October pretending to be September, the kind of false summer that made you forget winter was coming. I'd packed my entire life into 4 boxes and 2 suitcases, everything that truly mattered fitting into what Marco's Mercedes could hold in a single trip. It was sobering, realizing how little I'd accumulated in 25 years. How much of what I owned was just stuff, meaningless objects that I would miss once they were gone. Jenna helped me pack my grandmother's recipe books last, wrapping them carefully in newspaper like they were made of glass instead of paper and memories. "You know I support you," she said, not meeting my eyes as she taped down the box flaps. "But I'm scared. This feels like you're disappearing." "I'm not disappearing." I grabbed her hands, making her look at me. "I'll be 15 minutes away. Same city, same subway line. Just a different address. 15 minutes in a whole different world." She finally met my gaze, and I saw real fear there. "Promise me you won't lose yourself in his life. Promise me you'll still be Aurora. Still work toward your bakery. Still be my best friend who texts me nonsense at 2 in the morning." I pulled her into a hug, fighting tears that would ruin my carefully applied makeup. "I promise. This is temporary. 6 months, then I'm back to normal life. Just with better savings and no Braden to worry about." 6 months. She didn't sound convinced, and honestly, neither was I. Marco arrived exactly at 9, as scheduled. He loaded my boxes with care, treating my meager possessions like they mattered, like the second-hand dishes and thrift store clothes were precious cargo instead of garbage someone else had thrown away. The drive to Luca's townhouse was quiet, Marco respecting my need for silence as I processed this surreal transition. The city looked different in morning light, softer somehow. The harsh edges smoothed by golden sunshine that made even the grimy buildings look almost beautiful. The townhouse looked different too, less imposing in daylight. Just a beautiful home on a tree-lined street where people walked dogs and carried coffee from the boutique cafe on the corner. Normal life, expensive normal life, but normal nonetheless. Marco showed me to my suite, which had been transformed since I'd seen it 3 days ago. Fresh white roses on the dresser, their scent filling the air with something sweet and clean. The closet had been stocked with basics in my exact size, soft cotton t-shirts and cashmere sweaters that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. The bathroom was filled with toiletries I actually used, not generic luxury brands, but the specific drugstore shampoo I bought, the face wash I preferred, even my favorite brand of toothpaste. "Mr. Rossi wanted you to feel at home," Marco explained, setting down my last box with careful precision. "If anything isn't to your liking, just let staff know. We're here to make your transition comfortable." Staff. I had staff now, apparently. The thought was surreal, like I'd stepped into someone else's life instead of my own. "Where is he?" I asked. "Luca. Business meeting downtown. He'll be back this afternoon." Marco moved toward the door, then paused. "Lunch will be served at 1 o'clock if you're hungry. Otherwise, take time to settle in. This is your home now, Miss Aurora." After he left, I stood in the center of my new room, feeling untethered. Everything was perfect, expensive, chosen with care. But not mine. Not really. These were things Luca had selected, preferences he'd guessed at, a version of me he'd constructed from background checks and observation. I unpacked slowly, finding places for my grandmother's books on the built-in shelves, my few clothes lost in the massive closet like children playing dress-up in adult spaces. My toiletries barely filled one drawer in the bathroom vanity. By noon, I'd unpacked everything and found myself with nothing to do, no purpose, no direction. I wandered the 3rd floor, discovering rooms I hadn't seen before. A sitting room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, leather-bound volumes organized by color and size. A small study with a desk facing the garden, a laptop already set up with a note in strong handwriting, "For your business planning. Password is your grandmother's name." The thoughtfulness cracked something in my chest. He'd remembered. In the chaos of propositions and arrangements, he'd remembered what mattered to me. Voices drifted from downstairs, staff going about their work with quiet efficiency. I followed the sound and the scent of something delicious to a dining room less formal than the one where we'd had dinner. Smaller, cozier, with windows overlooking the street. Maria, the same woman who'd served us, smiled warmly when I appeared in the doorway. "Miss Aurora, please sit. I've made a light lunch. I didn't know your preferences yet, so I prepared options." The spread was hardly light. Fresh Capri salad with tomatoes that actually tasted like tomatoes, grilled chicken with herbs I could smell from across the room, pasta with vegetables that still had bite to them, crusty bread that was still warm, and 3 dessert options that made my baker's heart sing with envy. "This is wonderful," I said after the first bite, the flavors exploding on my tongue. "You're incredibly talented." Maria beamed, her whole face transforming. "Mr. Rossi said you're a baker yourself. I'd love to learn your technique sometime, if you're willing to share. I've been trying to perfect French macarons for months, but they always crack." The genuine interest in her voice eased something in my chest. Maybe I could find a place here after all. Maybe this didn't have to feel like exile. "I'd be happy to show you," I said, meaning it. "My grandmother's technique is all about temperature control and patience." We talked for an hour, Maria asking questions about baking while I asked about the house, the staff, Luca's routines. She'd worked for him for 7 years, she told me, and had nothing but respect for him. He was demanding but fair, expected excellence, but rewarded it generously. He remembered birthdays, asked about her daughter's soccer games, paid for her son's orthodontist bills without being asked. "He's a good man," she said, clearing plates with practiced efficiency. "Complicated but good. You'll see." After lunch, I found my way to the garden, that hidden oasis I'd glimpsed from the windows. Someone had put considerable care into creating this space, mixing formal structure with wild abundance. Boxwood hedges lined gravel paths, but roses climbed over them in cheerful rebellion. A fountain burbled in one corner, the sound of water soothing. Herb gardens released their scent when I brushed past them, rosemary and thyme, and something I thought might be lavender. I found a bench beneath an old oak tree and sat with my grandmother's oldest recipe book, running my fingers over her handwritten notes in the margins. Corrections, adjustments, little observations about weather and humidity and how they affected rising times. "I hope you know what you're doing, Nona," I whispered to the pages. "Because I'm not sure I do." "Talking to yourself or the book?" I jumped, nearly dropping the precious volume. Luca stood a few feet away, his suit jacket draped over his arm, tie loosened. He looked tired, the first time I'd seen anything but complete control in his expression. Lines bracketed his mouth, and his hair was slightly mussed, like he'd been running his hands through it. "My grandmother wrote these," I said, clutching the book protectively. "Sometimes I talk to her through them. Helps me think." He moved closer, gesturing to the bench. "May I?" I nodded, and he sat beside me, close enough that I could feel his warmth, smell the sandalwood that was becoming familiar. But not crowding, always careful of my space. "How was your first day?" he asked, his voice softer than I'd heard it before. "Surreal." I looked around the garden, at the beauty that surrounded us. Beautiful, but surreal. "I keep expecting to wake up. It's an adjustment, but you'll find your rhythm." He glanced at the book in my lap. "What recipe are you consulting?" "Her chocolate torte. She used to make it for special occasions, claimed the secret was in when you folded the eggs." I traced the faded handwriting, remembering her hands demonstrating, flour dusted on her apron. Too early, and you deflate the batter. Too late, and you don't get the right rise. "Will you make it sometime?" The request was simple, but it felt significant somehow. "I'd like to taste something from those pages." "Maybe." I met his eyes, seeing genuine curiosity there. "If you're good." His laugh was surprised and genuine, the tired lines around his mouth easing. "If I'm good." "You realize most people don't set conditions on me. Then most people are missing out on the fun of making you work for things." Something shifted in his eyes, heat flickering behind the control. "Careful, Aurora. I tend to want things more when they're difficult to obtain." The air between us suddenly felt charged, heavy with possibility. I stood quickly, needing distance, needing to breathe without his sandalwood cologne filling my lungs. "I should let you rest. You look exhausted." Negotiations took longer than expected. He stood as well, rolling his shoulders, and I caught a glimpse of strain, of the weight he carried. "There's something we should discuss. I have an event Tuesday evening. Gallery opening in Chelsea. Several important business associates will be there. It will be our first public appearance together." Reality crashed back. The arrangement. the role I'd agreed to play. So soon. Better to establish the relationship quickly. Rumors spread fast in certain circles. He studied my face, reading my anxiety. You'll need something appropriate to wear. I've arranged for a stylist to come Monday. She'll take care of everything. I can dress myself. The words came out sharper than intended, defensive. I know you can, but these events have expectations. The stylist will help you navigate them. His tone softened. Think of it as armor, not costume. You're still you, just dressed for battle. The phrase resonated. Armor, not costume. Maybe I could do this after all. Okay. Monday for the stylist. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the afternoon warmth. Thank you for all of this. The room, the laptop, the everything. He hesitated, then moved closer. His hand came up to cup my cheek, the touch gentle, almost reverent. Aurora, I know this is overwhelming, but you're not alone in this. If you need anything at all, just ask. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone, and I forgot how to breathe. We stayed like that for a long moment, suspended in the garden's quiet, before he dropped his hand and stepped back. I should let you finish settling in. Dinner is at 7 if you'd like to join me, but there's no obligation. This is your home. You can eat in your room if you prefer. After he left, I returned to my suite and found the tablet on the desk, the one he'd given me for bakery research. I opened it, found the password already entered. My grandmother's name. Aubert. Files were already loaded. Business plan templates, bakery equipment suppliers, commercial real estate listings in Brooklyn. Articles about successful bakery startups, interviews with pastry chefs I admired. He'd thought about this, researched what I'd need, created a foundation for me to build on. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen, something warm and terrifying blooming in my chest. This wasn't just protection. This was belief. Luca Rossi, dangerous businessman with questionable connections, believed in my dreams enough to invest time in researching them. Monday, the stylist arrived with enough clothes to stock a boutique. Claudia was in her 50s, elegant and efficient, with kind eyes that immediately put me at ease. Mr. Rossi was very clear, she said, unpacking garment bags with practiced hands. Nothing too revealing, nothing that makes you uncomfortable. We're enhancing your natural style, not changing it. She was true to her word. The clothes she selected were beautiful but wearable, dresses and separates I could imagine actually living in. Soft fabrics and colors that complemented my skin, cuts that flattered without making me feel exposed. For the gallery opening, she chose a midnight blue dress in silk that flowed like water, caught the light like moonlight on the ocean. Elegant without being ostentatious, the kind of dress that whispered wealth instead of shouting it. You'll stop traffic, she promised, pinning the hem to the perfect length. But in a way that feels like you. Like you walked into that closet and found the perfect version of yourself. Tuesday evening arrived too quickly. I dressed carefully, my grandmother's locket at my throat, hands trembling slightly as I fastened the delicate clasp. This was it. The first test of whether I could play this role convincingly. Luca knocked at 7 precisely. When I opened the door, his expression transformed from controlled politeness to something deeper, more primal. His dark eyes traveled over me slowly, cataloging every detail, and the heat in his gaze made my skin flush. You're breathtaking, he said simply, his voice rough. Claudia did good work. Claudia had excellent material to work with. He offered his arm, and I noticed he was wearing a Tom Ford tuxedo, black on black with a subtle sheen that probably cost more than I used to make in 6 months. Ready. The gallery was in Chelsea. All white walls and dramatic lighting designed to make the art pop. As we entered, I felt the shift in attention, heads turning, conversations pausing mid-sentence. Luca kept his hand at the small of my back, possessive but not controlling, guiding me through the crowd with easy confidence. Luca, we'd heard you might come. A silver-haired man approached, his eyes flickering to me with undisguised curiosity, the kind of assessment that made me feel like a painting being appraised. And who is this lovely creature? Marcus, meet Aurora Reyes. Aurora, Marcus Wentworth, curator and insufferable snob. Marcus laughed, taking my hand with continental courtesy. Guilty on both counts. How did someone like you end up with someone like him? Elevator accident, I said, making Luca choke on his champagne. We moved through the crowd, Luca introducing me to dozens of people whose names blurred together. Business associates, artists, society figures. Everyone wanted to know about me, about us, about how we'd met. I watched them calculate, measuring what my presence meant for their relationship with Luca. You're doing beautifully, Luca murmured during a quiet moment, his breath warm against my ear. Natural, charming. Everyone is completely convinced. Convinced of what? We haven't even touched. That's easily remedied. His hand slid from my back to my waist, pulling me closer, thumb stroking in slow circles that sent awareness cascading through me like electricity. To anyone watching, it looked like casual affection. To me, it felt like lightning, like every nerve ending suddenly awake. Is this necessary? I asked breathlessly, my heart hammering. Extremely. His lips brushed my temple, intimate and claiming. My competitors are watching, wondering if you're a weakness they can exploit. Let them see you're protected. Let them see you're mine. The word mine shouldn't have affected me. This was an arrangement, a role we were playing. But something in my body responded to his certainty, to the possessive warmth of his touch, to the way he said that word like it meant something real. There's someone here I need to warn you about, he said, his tone shifting to something darker, more dangerous. Viktor Kosov, Russian businessman with interests that occasionally conflict with mine. He'll try to get information from you, maybe offer to help you if you ever need to escape me. Why would he do that? Because causing me problems amuses him. Luca's hand tightened on my waist. Don't engage beyond basic politeness. Don't accept anything from him. Don't be alone with him under any circumstances. Before I could respond, a man appeared at Luca's shoulder. Blonde, pale-eyed, with a smile that didn't reach his face, like a shark that had learned to imitate human expressions. He wore a gray chiton suit that probably cost $30,000 and diamond cufflinks that caught the gallery lights like little stars. Luca, what an unexpected pleasure. His accent was thick Russian, each word carefully pronounced. And this must be the mysterious Aurora I've heard whispers about. Victor. Luca's voice went cold, arctic. I didn't know you appreciated art. I appreciate many things. Beauty, for instance. His gaze traveled over me in a way that made my skin crawl, like he was cataloging which parts he'd keep and which he'd discard. You've chosen well, Luca. Though I wonder if such a delicate flower understands what she's gotten herself into. I understand perfectly, I said, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. Thank you for your concern. Victor's smile sharpened, and something predatory flickered in those pale eyes. Of course. Though if you ever need a friend, someone outside Luca's influence, I'm always available. A woman should have options. She won't, Luca said flatly, dismissively. Enjoy the gallery, Victor. After he walked away, I felt Luca's tension vibrating through his frame like a struck tuning fork. That was a warning shot. He knows about you now. Will try to use you against me.
How?
By making you doubt me. By offering protection if you want to leave. By suggesting I'm dangerous and he's safer. His hand tightened on my waist almost painfully before he forced himself to relax. Don't believe him, Aurora. Whatever I am, Victor is worse. Much worse. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of champagne and careful smiles. We stayed another hour, playing the devoted couple, before Luca announced we were leaving. In the car, he finally relaxed slightly, though weariness still lined his features. You handled tonight perfectly, he said, genuine approval in his voice. Even Victor. I'm impressed. I told you I could do this. You did. I should have believed you more readily. He turned to look at me, city lights sliding across his face through the tinted windows. You're stronger than you give yourself credit for. Back at the townhouse, he walked me to my suite, his presence solid and comforting after hours of performance. At my door, he paused. Get some rest. Tomorrow, We can go back to normal routine. What is normal routine? I asked, realizing I had no idea how our days would work. Whatever you want it to be. Work on your business plan, experiment in the kitchen, read in the garden. He leaned against the doorframe, exhaustion finally showing through his careful control. This is your home, Aurora. Live in it. He turned to leave, but I caught his wrist. His skin was warm under my fingers, and I felt his pulse jump at the contact. Thank you, I said softly. For tonight. For the clothes, for the tablet, for seeing me. Something vulnerable flickered in his eyes. You make it easy to see you. You shine too brightly to be invisible. He lifted my hand, pressed a kiss to my knuckles that burned like a brand, then left before I could respond. The next week settled into a rhythm. Mornings, I worked at the bakery where I was still employed, testing recipes and fulfilling orders. Afternoons, I spent in Luca's restaurant-grade kitchen, experimenting with my grandmother's recipes, making adjustments in the margins of her books just like she used to. Maria became my ally, teaching me the house's rhythms while learning my baking techniques. We spent hours together, her questions about pastry while I asked about Luca, piecing together the man behind the dangerous reputation. He wasn't always like this, she told me one afternoon, watching me fold egg whites with careful precision. When I first started, he laughed more, smiled. Then his partner died, and something closed off. Roberto. You know about Roberto? Her surprise was evident. Luca told me. Said he was murdered by rivals. Maria nodded slowly. It changed him, made him harder, more careful about who he trusted. Until you. She met my eyes. I've never seen him bring someone into his home before. You're different. I didn't know what to do with that information, so I focused on my meringue instead. Thursday afternoon, I was in the kitchen covered in flour, chocolate smeared on my cheek, testing a new variation on my grandmother's torte. The radio played jazz, and I was completely in my element, lost in ratios and temperatures and the alchemy of turning simple ingredients into something beautiful. I didn't hear Luca come in. That smells incredible. I spun around, nearly dropping my mixing bowl. He stood in the doorway, still in his work clothes, a charcoal Brioni suit with the jacket slung over his shoulder, tie loosened. But it was his expression that stopped my breath. The way he was looking at me, like I was the most fascinating thing he'd ever seen. I didn't hear you come home. I set down the bowl, suddenly self-conscious about the flour in my hair, the chocolate on my face, the mess surrounding me. I'm sorry, I've taken over your kitchen. Don't apologize. He moved closer, his eyes never leaving me. This is what you should be doing. Creating. This is who you are. He reached out, his thumb brushing across my cheek, coming away with chocolate. He brought it to his mouth, tasting it, and something hot and dangerous flickered in his eyes. Dark chocolate with espresso, he said. And something else. Cardamom. You have a good palate. I was impressed despite myself. Most people couldn't identify cardamom by taste. I own 3 restaurants. I'd better have a good palate. He smiled, and it transformed his face completely. Younger, lighter, like the man Maria remembered. Can I try it? The torte? It's not finished. Needs another 30 minutes in the oven, then cooling time. Then I'll wait. He pulled out one of the kitchen stools, settling in like he had nowhere else to be. Tell me about it. Why this recipe? Why today? So I told him about my grandmother's insistence on using only the darkest chocolate, about how she'd added espresso to enhance the chocolate flavor without making it taste like coffee, about the cardamom, her secret ingredient that she'd brought from Provence, that made the torte taste like something you couldn't quite identify but couldn't stop eating. He listened with complete attention, asking questions that showed he understood the craft, the artistry. Not just eating desserts, but understanding how they were built, layer by layer, technique by technique. You should be doing this full-time, he said finally. Not working for someone else's bakery. Your own place, your own vision. That's the plan. 2 more years of savings. Or 6 months from now. He leaned forward, intent. Aurora, I meant what I said about helping you. Not taking over, not controlling. but connecting you with investors, real estate brokers who owe me favors, equipment suppliers who'll give you wholesale pricing. You have the talent. Let me help you with the rest. Why? The question burst out before I could stop it. Why do you care? This isn't part of our arrangement. Because watching you create is the first thing that's made me feel something real in 3 years. The admission hung between us, raw and honest. Because you deserve to build your dreams, and I have the power to help. Why wouldn't I? The timer went off, saving me from responding. I pulled the torte from the oven, the smell of chocolate and espresso filling the kitchen. It was perfect, risen evenly, the top slightly cracked in exactly the right way. Now we wait for it to cool, I said, my voice unsteady. I'm good at waiting. He settled back on his stool, showing no signs of leaving. Tell me more about your grandmother. About Provence. So I did. We talked until the torte cooled, then I cut him a slice, watching his face as he took the first bite. His eyes closed, and a sound escaped him that made heat pool low in my stomach. This, he said, opening his eyes to pin me with that intense gaze, is extraordinary. This is what people will line up for. This is what makes someone drive across the city. It's just cake. It's never just cake. He took another bite, savoring it. It's memory and love and skill combined. It's your grandmother's hands guiding yours. It's art you can taste. We finished the slice together, talking about flavors and techniques, and for the first time since moving in, I forgot I was playing a role. Forgot this was temporary. Just existed in the moment, in the kitchen with a dangerous man who understood why I added cardamom to chocolate. That night, lying in my cloud-soft bed, I realized something terrifying. I was starting to fall for him. Not the arrangement, not the protection, not the luxury. Him. The way he listened when I talked about baking. The way he remembered my grandmother's name. The way he looked at me covered in flour, like I was beautiful instead of messy. This is insane, I thought. This whole situation is completely insane. But my traitorous heart didn't care about sanity. It only cared that Luca Rossi made me feel seen in a way no one ever had, not even Braden during the good times. Friday morning, I woke to my phone buzzing. A text from an unknown number. Stop looking so comfortable in his world. Some of us are watching. A friend. Ice flooded my veins. I sat up, suddenly wide awake, staring at the message. A friend. Viktor Kossoff's pale eyes flashed through my memory. I screenshot the message and forwarded it to Luca immediately. His response came within seconds. Stay inside. Marco is outside your door. I'm coming home. I wrapped myself in the cashmere robe that had appeared in my closet, thick and soft, and probably worth more than my old monthly rent. Opened my door to find Marco standing there, his expression grim. Mr. Rossi is 10 minutes away. I'm to stay with you until he arrives. What's happening? Viktor Kossoff is making his move. Mr. Rossi suspected he would, but not this quickly. Marco's hand rested on something under his jacket, and I realized with a jolt that he was armed. Had probably always been armed. You're safe here. The house is secure. Luca arrived in 8 minutes, not 10. I heard him taking the stairs 2 at a time. Then he was at my door, still in yesterday's clothes, looking like he hadn't slept. Let me see your phone. I handed it over. He read the message, his expression darkening with each word. It's Victor, I said unnecessarily. It's Victor. He looked at Marco. Full security protocols. No one in or out without my clearance. I want eyes on all entry points. Already done, sir. After Marco left, Luca turned to me, and I saw something I hadn't seen before. Fear. Real, visceral fear. I'm sorry, he said. I knew he'd try something, but I thought I had more time. Thought he'd be more subtle. It's just a text, but my hands were shaking as I said it. It's a declaration of intent. He moved closer, his hands coming up to frame my face. He's telling me he can reach you. That all my protection means nothing if he decides to take you. Then what do we do? His thumb stroked across my cheekbone, that gesture becoming familiar. We make sure he understands that would be the last mistake he ever makes. The certainty in his voice should have terrified me. Instead, wrapped in cashmere with his hands on my face and his dark eyes burning with protective fury, I felt safer than I had in years. "I won't let him touch you," Luca said, and it sounded like a vow. "Whatever it takes, Aurora. He won't touch you." And standing there in my borrowed robe in my beautiful borrowed room with a dangerous man making dangerous promises, I realized I believed him. God help me, I believed every word. The text from Victor changed everything. Within an hour, the townhouse transformed into something else entirely. Men I'd never seen before appeared at every entrance, their suits expensive, but their eyes hard, watchful. Marco coordinated them with military precision, speaking in rapid Italian that I couldn't follow but understood meant danger, threat, protection. Luca disappeared into his study with his phone pressed to his ear, his voice too low for me to hear, but his body language screaming fury barely contained. I sat in my room, still in that cashmere robe, watching the morning light shift across the garden and wondering how everything had gone wrong so quickly. "Miss Aurora." Marco knocked softly before entering. "Mr. Rossi needs to see you." The study, 3rd floor. Luca's study was a room I'd never entered, his private sanctuary. The door was open now, revealing dark wood paneling, leather furniture worn soft with use, and walls lined with books that actually looked read instead of decorative. He stood by the window, his back to me, still in yesterday's clothes. Rumpled, exhausted, human in a way I'd never seen him. "Close the door," he said without turning. I did, anxiety coiling in my stomach like a living thing. He finally turned, and the expression on his face stole my breath. Raw, vulnerable, stripped of every defense. This was Luca without the armor, without the control, and he looked terrified. "Viktor Kosov has made a move," he said, his voice carefully controlled despite the fear in his eyes. "He's kidnapped the daughter of one of my business partners. Sofia Corelli, 16 years old, taken from her school this morning." Horror crashed through me like ice water. "A child?" "He took a child. She's 16. Old enough to be terrified, too young to protect herself." Luca's hands clenched into fists at his sides. "He sent a message with the kidnapping. Says he knows about you, knows you matter to me. Suggests that if I don't cooperate, if I don't surrender certain territories and business interests, you might be next." The world tilted. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself. "This is because of me," I whispered. "Because of our arrangement. This is because Victor is a monster who uses innocence as a weapon." He moved toward me, his hands gripping my shoulders hard enough to almost hurt. "I need to handle this, Aurora. I need to get Sophia back safely, and I need to make Victor understand that you are untouchable. But I can't do any of that if I'm worried about your safety every second." "What are you saying?" "There's a property upstate. Catskills, isolated, heavily secured." His thumbs stroked circles on my shoulders, soothing despite the tension radiating from him. "Marco will take you there tonight. You'll be safe while I deal with this." "For how long?" "However long it takes. Days, maybe weeks." His jaw tightened, and I saw the cost of this decision in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Aurora. I promised you'd be safe with me, and now you're in danger because of me." I studied his face, seeing past the control to the turmoil beneath. This wasn't calculated anymore. This wasn't an arrangement or a business transaction. This was real fear, real guilt, real feeling. "Then I'll go," I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. "But you have to promise me something." "Anything. Get that girl back safely. Whatever it takes, however you have to do it, bring her home to her parents." His expression softened marginally, something like tenderness breaking through. "I will. I promise you that." 2 hours later, I was in an SUV with Marco and 2 other security personnel, driving north through countryside I barely registered. The city fell away behind us, replaced by trees still clinging to their autumn colors, mountains rising in the distance like ancient sentinels. Luca had kissed my forehead before I left, a gesture so tender it had brought tears to my eyes. "Be safe," he'd whispered against my skin. "Come back to me." Not come back to the house, or come back when it's over.
Come back to me.
The safe house was a cabin in the Catskills, remote and beautiful in a way that felt like a different world entirely. Log construction with modern security, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a lake that reflected the sky like a mirror. Inside, everything was comfortable without being ostentatious. Plush furniture, a kitchen fully stocked, bedrooms with views that would have been breathtaking if I could focus on anything other than the fear coiled in my chest. "You'll be safe here," Marco said, showing me the security system, the panic buttons, the communication protocols. "No one knows about this location except Mr. Rossi's inner circle. I'll be here at all times, and there are 2 men on the perimeter at all hours." "How will I know what's happening? With Sophia? With Luca?" "Mr. Rossi will update you when he can. He asked me to tell you." Marco paused, choosing his words carefully. "He asked me to tell you that you're all he can think about. That knowing you're safe is the only thing keeping him focused." That night, alone in a beautiful cabin miles from everything familiar, I tried to sleep and failed. My phone sat on the nightstand, silent and mocking. No calls, no texts, just the weight of not knowing pressing down on my chest until I could barely breathe. The first text came at 2 in the morning, making progress. "Stay patient.
Al."
I stared at those 4 words for an hour, trying to read meaning into them. Was Sophia okay? Was Luca safe? What did progress mean? I texted back, "Be careful.
Please.
His response came immediately, always.
For you.
The days blurred together. Morning light on the lake, Marco making coffee with practiced efficiency, the sound of wind in the pines outside. I tried to keep busy, working on my business plan, sketching designs for my dream bakery, reading books from the cabin's surprisingly extensive library. But everything felt hollow, unreal, like I was suspended in amber waiting for real life to resume. Luca's texts came sporadically, brief updates that told me nothing and everything. Day 2, negotiating. Don't worry. Day 3, almost resolved.
Soon.
Day 4, thinking of you in my kitchen. Covered in flour. Smiling. That last one made me cry. Not from fear, but from the intimacy of it. The way he could reach across the distance with a single image and make me feel seen. I texted back. Thinking of you watching me. The way you looked when you tasted the tort. His response took an hour. That memory is keeping me sane. Day 5, I was pacing the cabin's main room, driving Marco quietly insane with my restless energy, when my phone rang. Not a text, an actual call. Luca's name on the screen. I answered before the second ring. "Luca?" "Aurora." His voice was rough, exhausted, beautiful. "I just needed to hear you. Needed to know you're okay." "I'm fine."
Safe.
Bored out of my mind, but safe. I moved to the window, looking out at the lake like I could see all the way to the city if I looked hard enough. "How are you? What's happening?" "Can't give you details yet, but we're close. Very close." He exhaled slowly, and I could picture him rubbing his face, that gesture he made when he was exhausted. "Sophia is alive, unharmed. We've located where Victor is holding her. It's just a matter of executing the extraction." "When?" "Tonight. Maybe tomorrow morning." A pause, filled with things unsaid. "Aurora, when this is over, when you come back, we need to talk. Really talk."
About what?
About the fact that this arrangement stopped being pretend for me weeks ago. The admission hung between us, raw and honest. About the fact that I can't sleep because you're not down the hall. Can't focus because I keep thinking about you covered in flour, arguing with me about cake techniques. Can't breathe right because you're not safe in my home where I can protect you. My hand pressed against the window, cold glass under warm skin. "Luca." "You don't have to say anything," he interrupted. "Not yet. Just know that when you come back, things are going to be different. I'm going to be different. No more pretending, Aurora. Not with you." The call ended before I could respond, leaving me staring at my reflection in the window, my heart racing, his words echoing in my mind. Day 6, Marco's phone rang at dawn. I was already awake, watching the sun rise over the lake, when I heard his voice from the other room. Rapid Italian, his tone sharp with urgency. Then silence. He appeared in the doorway, his expression transformed from tense to relieved. "The girl is safe," he said, and I felt tears spring to my eyes. "Mr. Rossi and his team extracted her 2 hours ago. She's back with her family, shaken but unharmed." "And Luca? Is he okay?" "He's handling final details with Kossoff. But yes, he's unharmed." Marco's rare smile appeared. "We can return to the city tomorrow morning. Mr. Rossi is waiting for you." That night, I barely slept. Anticipation and anxiety and something else, something that felt dangerous and wonderful, kept me awake and restless. When I finally dozed off, I dreamed of Luca's hands on my face, his voice sang mine like it meant something real. The drive back to the city felt eternal. Every mile stretched, every minute crawled. Marco kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror, amusement in his eyes. "He's missed you too," he said finally. "I've worked for Mr. Rossi for 12 years. I've never seen him like this. Pacing, distracted, checking his phone every 30 seconds like a teenager. I've only been gone a week. It's not about the time, Miss Aurora. It's about what changed in that time." Marco's expression turned serious. "He's different when you're around. Lighter. More like the man I remember before Roberto died. You're good for him." We pulled up to the townhouse in the afternoon, golden autumn light making the limestone glow like honey. The security presence was still visible but less oppressive, men standing down from high alert to normal vigilance. Marco opened my door. "He's upstairs. 5th floor. His private suite." The 5th floor. The place I'd never been invited, Luca's sanctuary. I climbed the stairs slowly, my heart hammering. What would I say? How did you tell someone that a week apart had clarified everything, that fear of losing them had burned away every pretense? The 5th floor was exactly what I expected. Masculine, elegant, lived in. Dark wood and leather, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the garden. A sitting area with books scattered on tables, a half-empty glass of whiskey catching the light. And there, standing by the window with his back to me, still wearing yesterday's clothes, was Luca. Luca. He turned, and the expression on his face stole my breath. Raw, vulnerable, stripped of every defense. He looked exhausted, battered by the last week, but whole. Safe. Here. Aurora. I crossed the room and crashed into him, wrapping my arms around his waist, holding tight. He folded around me immediately, his face buried in my hair, his body shaking slightly with relief or exhaustion or both. "I thought I might lose you," he whispered against my hair. "Victor threatened to send men after you. I had to make sure you were so far away, so protected, that even his reach couldn't find you. I'm here. I'm safe. And so is Sophia." I pulled back enough to see his face, to catalog the new lines around his eyes, the shadow of exhaustion. "You brought her home. Back with her family. Victor won't threaten anyone I care about again." His hands came up to frame my face, thumbs stroking my cheeks with infinite gentleness. What I did to make that happen, what was necessary. He swallowed hard. "I need you to understand that I would do it again. 1,000 times. Whatever it takes to keep you safe. I know what you are, Luca." I covered his hands with mine. "I've always known. And I'm still here." "Why?" The question was barely a whisper, vulnerable in a way that cracked my heart. "Why are you still here, Aurora?
You could walk away.
The arrangement gave you an out. 6 months and done. But you're still here. Because somewhere between that elevator and your kitchen, between chocolate torte and threatening texts, I stopped pretending too. The admission felt like jumping off a cliff. These 3 months, this arrangement, it stopped being fake the moment you remembered my grandmother's name. Stopped being temporary when you looked at me covered in flour, like I was beautiful. Stopped being anything but real when I spent a week terrified I'd never see you again." His eyes searched mine, dark and intense, and full of something that looked like hope. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I don't want this to be an arrangement anymore. I don't want to play pretend or count down months or think about what happens after." I moved closer, until our foreheads touched, until I could feel his breath against my lips. I want this to be real. I want you to be real. I've been real since the elevator, Aurora. His voice was rough with emotion. I looked at you, terrified and defiant, and something in me knew.
Mine.
Not as possession, but as recognition. Like I'd been waiting my whole life for someone to see me as just a man, and suddenly there you were. He kissed me then, and it wasn't like the careful pecks for appearances at the gallery. This was desperate and claiming and achingly tender all at once. Everything we'd held back for months, all the restraint and longing and fear, transformed into connection. His hands in my hair, my arms around his neck, bodies pressed together like we could merge into one person if we just held tight enough. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. "Stay with me," he said. Not because of the arrangement. Not for protection or safety or any of the reasons we told ourselves. Just stay because you want to. Because I'm yours and you're mine, and that's all the reason we need.
For how long?
I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Forever, if you'll have me. His voice shook slightly on the word. I know it's fast. I know we started this all wrong, with contracts and arrangements and lies for public consumption. But, Aurora, I've never been more certain of anything. You're it for me. The only one I want covered in flour in my kitchen. The only one I want sleeping down the hall. The only one I want, period. I thought about my grandmother, about her instruction to never waste my talent making someone else rich. But Luca had never tried to make me smaller. He'd given me space to grow, resources to dream, protection to thrive. He'd seen my strength and wanted to amplify it, not diminish it. Yes, I said simply. Forever. He kissed me again, softer this time, like we had all the time in the world. And maybe we did. Maybe when you found the right person, even dangerous beginnings could lead to beautiful endings. There's something else, he said, pulling back slightly. I handled the Braden situation while you were away. My stomach dropped. What did you do? Nothing permanent, nothing illegal. His mouth curved slightly. Just a conversation. Very civilized. I explained that his interest in you had drawn attention from people he didn't want to know his family's business. Presented some information about his father's tax irregularities, his brother's sealed juvenile record, some unfortunate investments his mother's charity made. And Braden decided that a job opportunity in California was suddenly very appealing. He left yesterday. Won't be back. Luca's expression was carefully neutral. I may have also suggested that if he ever contacted you again, if he so much as Googled your name, that information would find its way to very interested parties. I should have felt guilty. Should have felt something other than overwhelming relief. But all I felt was free. Finally, completely free. Thank you, I whispered. You don't have to thank me for protecting what's mine. His arms tightened around me. You don't have to thank me for anything, Aurora. Just stay. Just be here in my home, in my life, in my bed if you want it. That's all I need. Your bed. I raised an eyebrow, trying for lightness despite the heat flooding through me. Eventually. When you're ready. I'm a patient man. His eyes darkened with promise. But, Aurora, when you do come to my bed, when you decide you want me the way I want you, there's no going back. No more separate floors. No more pretending we're just housemates who happen to date for appearances. It's real or it's nothing. Then it's real, I said, certainty flooding through me. It's been real for weeks. I was just too scared to admit it. He picked me up then, making me laugh with surprise as he carried me toward his bedroom. No more fear. No more running. Just us, figuring this out together. The bedroom was exactly like him. Elegant, masculine, comfortable. A massive bed with charcoal linens, windows overlooking the garden where we'd had so many conversations, art on the walls that looked original and expensive. But what struck me most was the photo on his nightstand. The only personal item in the room. Me, in his kitchen, covered in flour and chocolate, laughing at something off camera. I didn't remember anyone taking it, but there I was, captured in a moment of pure joy. When did you take that? I asked as he set me down gently on the edge of his bed. I didn't. Maria did that day with the tort. She sent it to me while you were at the safe house. He sat beside me, taking my hand. I looked at it every night, reminded myself what I was fighting for, who I was keeping safe. I leaned my head on his shoulder, feeling the tension finally drain from my body. Safe. Home.
Real.
What happens now?
I asked.
With the arrangement, with the public appearances? Now we stop lying. He pressed a kiss to my temple. The next event we go to, the next time someone asks about us, I'm telling them the truth. That you're mine, really mine, and that I'm the luckiest bastard in New York. What about the 6 months? What about them? He turned to face me, his expression serious. Aurora, I don't want you here for 6 months. I want you here for 6 decades. I want to wake up to you every morning and go to sleep with you every night. I want to help you open your bakery and watch you build your empire. I want everything, not an arrangement. That's a lot of wanting. But I was smiling as I said it. Get used to it. I want you in ways I didn't know I could want someone. His hand cupped my face. In my kitchen, in my bed, in my life. Arguing with me about baking techniques and looking at me like I'm just a man instead of a reputation. I want it all, Aurora. I want you. I kissed him then, pouring everything I felt into that connection. Fear and relief and love, all tangled together until I couldn't separate them. His hands found my waist, pulling me closer, and I let myself fall into him, into this, into us. Stay, he whispered against my lips. Please stay. Forever, I promised. I'm not going anywhere. We stayed like that for a long time, wrapped around each other in his bed, the afternoon light shifting across the walls as the sun moved toward sunset. Not doing anything more than holding each other, talking quietly, learning the shape of this new reality. This was real. We were real. And everything that came before, all the arrangements and pretense, had just been the prologue to this moment. Outside, the city hummed its usual symphony. But up here, in Luca's bedroom with his arms around me and his heart beating steady under my cheek, the only sound that mattered was his breathing, the whispered promises we made to each other, the beginning of forever. I love you, he said quietly, the words falling between us like something precious. I know it's too soon, I know we're doing everything backwards, but I love you, Aurora. I've loved you since the elevator. I just didn't know it yet. I love you too. The words felt right, true, inevitable. This whole situation is completely insane. It is, he agreed, laughing softly. But it's our insane. And I wouldn't change a single moment. I thought about Braden in the lobby, about crashing into an elevator, about a dangerous man with kind eyes who'd offered me protection and given me so much more. About chocolate torte and threatening texts and a week apart that had clarified everything. Neither would I said. Not one moment. As the sun set over the garden, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, I fell asleep in Luca Rossi's arms and dreamed of bakeries and forever, of flower-covered mornings and a dangerous man who'd become my home. When I woke hours later, it was dark outside. Luca was still awake, propped against the headboard, watching me with an expression so tender it made my chest ache. What are you thinking? I asked, my voice rough with sleep. That I need to take you somewhere tomorrow. He brushed hair back from my face. There's someone I want you to meet. Who? Roberto's widow, Maria. And his daughters. His expression was vulnerable. They're important to me. And you're important to me. I need you to know each other. The significance wasn't lost on me. This wasn't just introducing me to friends. This was integrating me into his life, his real life, beyond the arrangement and the pretense. I'd love to meet them, I said softly. And after that, we're going to Brooklyn. To look at commercial real estate. His smile was small but real. Because we're opening your bakery, Aurora. Not in 2 years. In 6 months. I'm investing, you're creating, and we're building your dream together. Luca, I can't let you. You're not letting me do anything. I'm choosing to invest in someone with incredible talent and a brilliant vision. He kissed my forehead. Besides, I have a vested interest in keeping you happy. Happy, Aurora, means chocolate torte whenever I want it. I laughed, the sound surprising me with its lightness. That's your main motivation?
Dessert.
Among other things. His hand slid into my hair, tugging gently. But mostly, I just want to watch you shine. Want to give you every tool you need to build something extraordinary. Because you're extraordinary, and you deserve a partner who sees that.
Partner.
Not protector, not savior.
Partner.
Then let's build it together, I said. Your investment, my recipes, our dream. Our dream, he repeated, like he was testing the words. I like the sound of that. We stayed up talking until dawn, making plans, dreaming together, learning what it meant to be us instead of an arrangement. And somewhere in those quiet hours, I realized that crashing into that elevator had been the best accident of my life. Dangerous beginnings didn't have to mean dangerous endings. Sometimes they meant finding home in the most unexpected place, with the most unexpected person. As the sun rose over the garden, painting everything in shades of gold, Luca pulled me closer and whispered promises against my skin. Promises about bakeries and forever, about chocolate torte and growing old together, about building something beautiful from the wreckage of our separate pasts. And I believed every word, because this was real. We were real, and nothing had ever felt more right.